So other than the often very long hours, I actually am very lucky to have two jobs that both bring me great joy and fulfillment. The one Chelsea mentioned is ELF, which stands for Eat, Learn, and Frolic. And that is an eco and child-friendly cafe that will be coming to Traverse City this year, guaranteed. The other, my day job, if you will, that I haven't yet quit, happily, is as a conservation attorney. And conservation law is a specialized form of law that essentially has one goal: the protection of farms, forests, open spaces. But the protection of that land is not done through regulatory means or litigation. I've actually never set foot in a courtroom as an attorney other than to get sworn in and as a clerk for a judge when the year after law school. Otherwise, I don't go to court, and that makes me very happy. I keep my clients out of court, I like to say. So conservation law is essentially drafting and negotiation agreements with willing landowners who want to protect their land. They want to preserve their legacy. They want to see their environmental stewardship maintained in perpetuity. And I help them do that, and that's extremely fulfilling. So the journey to this very specialized area of law began a very long time ago when I was a young child, about 7, which incidentally is the age of my son, Jack. So I look at him sometimes and think, gosh, I wonder what he's thinking right now about his life. So I grew up in a very diverse religious household. My father and his family were Jewish. My mother and her family were Christian. So we got to celebrate all the holidays, which was, of course, a bonus. But we also worshipped in 2 different places. And when each of my sets of grandparents came over, we did different things, and we had different rituals. And although I appreciate that diversity now, it was a little confusing as a young child. And I think my grandmother, Ellen, of course, who I'm named after, sensed that confusion. And when I was around 7, she pulled me aside and said, Ellen, it doesn't really matter where you worship, because the closest you can be to God is in the forest. And that made a lot of sense to my 7-year-old sense. I grew up on Old Mission. I spent day in and day out romping in the woods with my neighbor friends. Day in and day out playing in West Bay. You know, the bell would ring, we'd run home for dinner. We were just out in nature all the time. We lived right next door to Buckins. We ate so many blueberries we'd get sick. And I just grew up surrounded by orchards and beauty that we all know and love of Old Mission. So time goes by, I go off to college, and one summer I come home from college and I noticed that some of the orchards were gone on Old Mission, and in their place there were houses. And you know, some of the forests that we used to play in were gone and had been converted to neighborhoods. And in fact, the very location that my neighborhood BFF, best friend forever, and I buried our time capsule stood a house. I'm sure our time capsule got dug up by an excavator. I was devastated. It was very shocking to me. And I didn't really know what to do about it at the time, but I was determined to find out and to figure out what to do about it. So after college, instead of going to grad school or law school, which I was very tempted to do, I like school, and all my friends were going to grad school, I decided not to go to law school at that point and to work for nonprofits and to just continue seeking and try to figure out what I wanted to do. And this was really precipitated by some guidance I got from a mentor in college. He said, if at all possible, take an early retirement in your 20s, before you have obligations, before you have a mortgage, before you have kids. Take time to figure out what you want to do. Travel, have adventures, do whatever drives you, but just don't get caught in the grind too quick. And I took him up on that, and I was lucky enough to be able to move around, work for nonprofits. And then a couple years after college, a friend and I got the bug, and we decided to head west. We didn't know where we were going, but we were going. And we sold all our worldly possessions, we packed my Honda Civic to the gills, and we went toward the sunset. Again, really not knowing where we were going to end up. So we did that for a while, and we traveled, we had adventures, we camped, we lived on intentional farm communities, trading labor for food and board, and had a quite amazing adventure. at some point we found ourselves in Northern California, in redwood country. And I found myself in a forest where the trees were as big as this stage. And perhaps 5 or 6 of them could fill this room. And as I stood there, sorry. And as I stood there, I at that moment understood the cathedral that my grandmother was talking about. I was standing in that cathedral. Sorry, I didn't expect it. So there I was. And when I learned that those trees were being cut, in my opinion, irresponsibly, unsustainably, these trees were older than Jesus. How could they be cut down? I decided I had to do something about it, and so I started chaining myself to things, like logging gates and tractors, and just natural. It was the natural thing to do. And so I did that, and I participated in the age-old practice of nonviolent civil disobedience. And I called my mother from jail, and bless her heart, now that I'm a mother, I don't know how she did it and lived through those years. But she did, and she supported me, and I thank her for that. And I also decided, after doing this for a while, that I needed to sit in a tree. I needed to save a tree, like a tree that I chose, and I was going to sit in it. And so I sat in a tree, and several of us sat in trees to protect this one part of the forest that was on the brink of being protected because it was part of an overall deal. The state of California was in negotiations to buy this forest and the adjacent 3,000 acres of old growth that it was serving as a buffer for. So we had an actual plan. We actually thought we could save some trees by holding off the loggers, slowing them down until this deal could go through. So we sat in the tree, and it was very scary. The loggers would come, they would yell, they would threaten to cut our trees down. And it was intense, and there were moments where I did not know if I was going to get out of there alive. But every night, the loggers would leave, and the forest would get still, and I would know that it was the right thing to do. So the forest was saved, the deal went through, we got down off our trees, our platforms after that week in the trees, and we went down, we schlepped our pounds of gear down the mountain, and we celebrated. We thought, we did it. We saved these trees. We slowed them down. Didn't save them all, but we saved a lot of them. And we saved the old growth forest next door. And then a couple days later, someone went up to just see what was going on, and he came back and reported solemnly that our trees had been cut. Probably in the middle of the night, out of spite. It was illegal. Those were protected at that point, but they were gone. And of course, again, I was devastated. And I was determined to figure out what it is I could do. It dawned on me that, my 5'1" frame, perhaps the best use of my time and efforts was not schlepping 100 pounds of gear up a mountain in the dark, evading security guards to sit in a tree just to see it get cut. I thought there was a better use of my skill set than that. So I kept seeking that. And that's when I came upon conservation law, an incentive-based approach, a carrot-based approach, where landowners want to do this, and you help facilitate that. And so I found a law school that offered classes in this area, and I applied just there and one other place just as my backup school. But I got in there. I went to this school in San Francisco. I sought out the professor who taught these classes and said, I came to study with you. I came to do this for my life. And he immediately hired me as his student aide. And then after law school and after working with him and becoming very close with him, he hired me to work at his firm after law school. And I went to work with my mentor, my hero, after law school. And I realized that once I found my niche, everything just fell into place. Everything was easy. And I think once you find that thing that brings you fulfillment, you do exude some sort of happiness or confidence that just opens doors for you. People want to be with you. They want to help you. They want to encourage you. They want to help open doors for you. And that is the experience that I had. And so looking back and totaling all the acreage that I've helped protect, it's about 100,000 acres over my 11-year career. And I have many more years to go. So I think about my tree, and I lament that it's no longer there, but I'm happy that it led me to protect the 100,000 acres and many, many more that I'll be protecting. So I will offer you this challenge. Take an early retirement. Doesn't matter if you're not 20 still. I'm not necessarily encouraging you to quit your job, pack your car, and head west, although I would support you if you wanted to do that, because it's great fun. But make room, as others have said tonight, make room to find that fulfillment. Seek what it is that you want to do. If you don't have 100% fulfillment in what you're doing now, continue to look. Maybe volunteer for an organization that is doing work that you find interesting, or take a class, or travel and meet new people and get ideas about, or even follow people around that are doing things that you like to do, offer to help them or offer to intern. Just always keep an open mind and always be seeking that thing that will bring you fulfillment, because once you find that, I think you'll also find that things move very easily and smoothly, and doors really do open. So the bottom line is, allow your heart to be open enough to take it wherever it needs to go, even if you don't really know where that is. Thank you.